Before I start, I would just like everybody to put their phones on silent or vibrate, like for the talk. Yeah? We're starting now. Please take your seats.
Sorry.
Before we begin, I would just like to say a few words about Jacques. He has been very kind to create this lecture for us, and I hope the students will have a great time with it. Jacques Kauffman was born in Casablanca, Morocco. Jacques began his work with clay as a hobby at the age of 18. Back then, he had little idea of how ceramics would eventually open the world to him and open him up to the world. Jacques began making large-scale ceramic works in 1993, and since then, most of the installations that he has created in various parts of the world have been either in relation with the possibility of the site or the geographical context. His involvement with the process of brick making has reflected time and time again in his large-scale installations that emerge from him, forming a large connection with the local cultures of the site. An example of such a work is the brick temple at Art Ecole near Khajuraho in Madhya Pradesh. He was also recently a part of Breaking Ground, the Indian Ceramics Trinalaya Jawaharlal Kendra, Jaipur in 2018. Jacques has had numerous solo shows since 1978, and his surreal, gigantic installations swirl around the mind's eye, creating awe and wonder in realms of form, space, and dimension. He has enabled the viewer to see ceramics as a fluid and lucid component of art that reached beyond a pedestal and is no longer confined to function or size. Please welcome Jacques.
Thanks to you to be here. I hope we are not going to have too many. Oh, this is not me. Okay. So thanks, Atul, to invite me in for the third time now to come and visit your place, and then invite me to make some large work in your amazing place, house at Udaan. Thank Nupur. Thanks, Ayushi. Thanks, Vinud, that introduced me to come to Baroda. Thank Rashi to come and come together and work along with me one more time. From Jaipur, we had very good relationships. Thanks to the students, I prepared this lecture basically for interacting with students and welcome their question after the lecture. If there are any, I hope there will be questions. Indeed, this lecture is based on my creation process. And is it okay with the sound?
Yeah.
Yes? I'm speaking too loud, or is it... Okay. Indeed, I was saying that this lecture has been made specially for universities and students because it is based on some aspect of creation process, which is always a question. Where does creation come from? And indeed, there is sometimes very romantic ideas about creation, inspiration. I don't believe at all in these kind of things. I think creation is based on methodology of creation, and then I will develop this during the lecture. Indeed, I consider myself as a ceramic artist. I think that ceramic is totally not enough considered in the contemporary art world. Only recently in the West, some artists has seen that ceramic clay as a medium to develop their skills, but still we can see that, especially for the galleries and museum, there's still a gap in between what we can see as artists using clay or ceramic artists making their work. And indeed, I consider that this recent interest of contemporary art world for clay is like a fashion, a new way to make business, a new way to make money, in fact. And indeed, I think that ceramic has a so long history that fashion is not so interesting and so not so important. I believe that I have heritage, not only me, but I share this heritage with you, with all the people working with clay. We have heritage of at least 29,000 years. This is not nothing. You know, 29,000 years of heritage. So we are like little dots in the very long history. And we are not in love with our material just by chance and by accident or because it is fashion. It's a deep in-love relationship. So, I'm artist. I have been professor for 20 years in an art school in Switzerland. And indeed, I have seen how interesting it is to be in between studio and teaching. One, not only relaxing the other, but also one feeding the other. Studio feeding the teaching process, and teaching process feeding also the relationship with the clay. I'm also a traveler, a guy who discovered by invitation and chance of life that ceramic is all over the world. When I started to learn ceramic in Geneva, my horizon was setting up a studio and working in the studio, and that was nice. And then I get invitation, we will see, to go to Africa, Rwanda, in 84 to 86, working there, and that has blown my mind and my world and my creative approach of clay. Then go back to France, set up a new studio, and then invited to go to China, and then 20 years of relationship with China, Korea, Japan, recently India. And indeed, I consider that there is two kinds of course, more than that. Let's go to the extreme, two kinds of people. The people who has heritage, conscious heritage, they are like trees coming from the ground and developing themselves to the sky, knowing where they are from, and that's great. And there are the people who don't know exactly where they come from. The roots, heritage, are not strong, not deep, maybe like bamboo, growing fast, setting up networks, and establishing another way to connect with from the ground to the sky. Maybe more flexible. So this is two ways to connect with not only contemporary world, but also heritage. So this is about the traveler. And then I'm a dreamer in hybridization. What means? It means that creation for me is no more in the center of the practices, but at the limits. At the limit of the material, limit of the processes, limit of the cultures, limit of everything, and this is the place for creation. And I will develop this as well. Maybe to take one more minute, I'm sorry, introduction for me, warming is always a little long. We will go to the pictures later, but I need to warm a little bit myself and you with general ideas toward a material culture. Indeed, we are, the word material is very often seen that, oh, this guy is very materialistic, means he needs money, he needs, and this. I have a problem with this sound. Yeah. Is it possible to, this is not good for me and for you too. Sorry? Is it? It's not this one. I think it's this one. Too loud, maybe. Yes? Can I speak now? Is better? Yeah. Okay. So very often the word material is seen as bad word. But indeed, we are made of materials. Our bodies and our environment is made of materials. And I believe that these materials participate to the well-being of human beings. So it's not neutral when we use one material or another. We live in a contemporary world where architecture, one young architect, where is he? The young, here. We spoke together these days, 2 days, about, okay, he wants to make bamboo architecture. Bamboo is not neutral. It has qualities. And qualities lead to resonances. So all this for me is quite important. And indeed, in the globalization world, pushed away because we are thinking, our world is thinking that, okay, the water should work, the electricity should work, and this is a basic need. And I believe that this is not only the basic need. We have feeling about material, about space, about each other, and it is a constant scanning of our brain, of what is our relation with the world, including the material that we are using. And if I eat on a table where it is clean, but empty inside, in terms of energy, or if I eat or sit, or be surrounded by material that have resonances with myself, my feeling of life, my happiness will of course increase. So that's why I believe that the role of art, but this is another lecture, is quite important because it can provide this kind of feeling, and I consider that this feeling also belongs to the basic needs of human beings when they are not only considering themselves as eating, sleeping, and leave you imagine the other very basic activities we have. I could stop after this slide. I will not. From material or process to space, toward a poetical energy. And indeed, after long meditation about what I am doing when I am in the studio or in other places, I am considering that one of the mission, one of the goal of the artist in its activities, in its actions, is to provide a poetical energy to other people. It means that before becoming rational, becoming conceptual, becoming something that we can analyze, first, the relationship that we have with art is a body-to-body relationship, providing something which is, if I have to resume, 1 + 1 is more than 2. And this is my definition of poetry. You have one image, you have another image that can be self-sufficient. You put them together, shake it, and the result is something, wow, that moves you. And this is what we are looking. This wow is indeed this poetical energy provided by the work, material, process, including in the work, leading us to feel that art, to take the definition of a French artist, art is what makes life more important and interesting than art, sorry. Art is what makes life more interesting than art. It's a kind of starter, emotional starter. When I see this, a poem should not mean, but be, which is a quote from American poet. I think very often, for example, in my experience as an artist in different countries is, what is your concept? This is a question of the journalist. What is your concept? What is explicit in your work? And I feel this is so boring. as artists, we should try to work on an other level of meaning or understanding than this one, which is so basic, the concept. This is so reducing the activity that we have. Being, which means introducing life into the work, is one of the missions of the artist, not only the concept. That's why I think that the 70s, the 80s, coming from America with conceptual art, okay, it's a movement in the history of art, which is okay. But we have to remember that it comes from a Protestant country, where you should not express some aspect of feeling. Feeling in the 70s and 80s was like bad smell under the arm. Feeling is, don't express any feeling. We have to be rational. We are not rational. We have a lot of animal part in ourselves that, in fact, are communicating all the time with others. And I think this is very important, not to forget. So very often, when art becomes explicit, it becomes also very boring. It's also why, as a professor, it took me a few years, when I started to teach, to understand that when I was asking the student for the final thesis work, what is your concept? I was reducing the practice in a way that, indeed, myself in my studio, I was not doing this way. I was starting with one intuition, leading to experimentation, and from experimentation, I was able to have a real feedback from the material process and everything. And from that, we can build and start to become rational. But first is intuition, leading to experimentation, and then developing the work. So for the student, when maybe your professor will ask, what is your concept? Please remember this. You can say, my intuition, and nobody can critique your intuition. Nobody can enter into this space with you. This is so personal. Who can be allowed to criticize this? Impossible. By the way, ideas. Very often with my student, I spoke about ideas. What is an idea? I summarize my position with ideas this way. Ideas is like the bubble in the Coca-Cola. Very difficult not to have an idea. And in fact, I don't care ideas. This is not the problem. You have ideas, that's fine. Good for you. But how to build a connection in between ideas? It means how to build a thinking process based on a real experimentation. This is something that nobody can attack because it belongs to you. People may not like it, not a problem. It belongs to you, and one day people will feel it if you succeed to go indeed in deep in the question of real exchange through energetical process with your material, with your processes, and in my lecture I will explain also with the space. This image, I'm sorry, today I'm very slow. That's it. This image is indeed the first image that we have from our universe. The plus few seconds from the start. And one philosopher from the West, Hegel, say the start is a god. So, and the scientists also say that before this moment we have no idea what is. From this moment, it is a relationship of energy leading to become materiality, and from materiality to succeed to be life, and so on and so on. What we know in the world, which is our world. So sometimes I present this picture as the face of God, based on the Western scientific point of view. This is the first image of our universe. So indeed, in my own cosmology, okay, we have space. No, I will consider that in the Western world we have fire, water, earth, and air. And in the Chinese, they add metal. And in the Hindu, I think, people told me that you can add space or energy, which is combined. This is a further discussion that really I like to have about how cultures represent the basic elements. But in my own perceptions, indeed, through experience, is if I have to put one thing in the center, it's energy. And indeed, it's the only thing I'm looking, when I'm looking to work, including my own one, is the energy well fitted inside the work? Is it going to be straight, and then people can feel it, or, okay, it's boring to do, so it will be boring to see. And for example, with 3 students and Rashid, we started to do some work. At the beginning, it was painful, because we have to put the energy at the correct place, and it is not given. But when it starts to be in the body, there is a kind of smile inside, because something fluent is coming, and then we can work. And it is fluent in between the material and ourselves and the result, and something is becoming happy inside. This aspect of work for me is quite important. If I'm not happy in doing something, how the other will be happy? Impossible. So we have to clean our energy when we work and be very careful in how the energy can go in the material that is going to accept it, welcome it, in a dialogue that we have, that be after that provided to the viewer. One of my questions is about the legitimacy of forms. Okay, I found this picture. I filmed it in my country. It is a group of birds moving together and shaping in a very free way. This is a kind of dream for me. How could I be one day this way? So moving in a light way and together, and this is a dream for me. Wow. And indeed, the legitimacy of forms that we can see, we can observe them in different fields. One field is in nature. And in fact, there is forces leading to forms. We can find also this, and I cannot develop too much. This will be another lecture. About the forms coming from cultures. And then I have to give you a definition of my definition of culture, which is not the official definition of culture. But for me, culture is everything that we do and which is natural to do because we are used to do it without sometimes knowing that this way could be done in another way. For example, piling up wood or cutting food. This is culture. It's not only art. Art is a part of the culture only. And there is many ways. For example, driving, same word. Driving, but driving in the US and driving in Switzerland and driving in India. Not the same. Same word, but not the same qualities behind and not the same rules and so on. So this is the forms that can come from the culture, because they are specific to some aspect of, okay, through years and centuries, we do this way because we are used to do this way, and it has an origin, but we have totally forgotten the origin of it. And then there is in art. And in art, usually the form comes through processes. So we have the natural forces in the nature, for example, the wind providing the waves, eroding the hills beside the sea or making the sand. This is a force leading to shapes, as well as we have processes in art leading to shapes that we will be able to observe. And indeed, I can make art with a hammer. Or maybe, if I go to the extreme, I can make art with a bomb. Not by killing people, but by using this process in order to create something which can be, okay. But indeed, the tools are not neutral. The tools are something which is already a language, as well as maybe in the wind for the sea, and as well as what are the forces, the sun for the leaves, and so on. This also creates shapes. Growing is a force of nature, providing shapes. And erosion and destruction also belong to these forces leading to transformation. So the legitimacy of form, for me, I would say, when we can find the direct connection in between the force leading to the form, then I feel that there is something through, indeed, the energy, the qualified energy that we have, can be felt by the others. If this is missing, okay, we have something, but the real impact coming from energy to energy that we can feel from each other all the time, because we are scanning this all the time, maybe is lost. So we have only, after that, the upper part of the body, the mind, who is analyzing, but this is so poor. All the other levels, from body, from this aspect of emotion, this one, even the soul, all this is not involved in that. Maybe you know this. Sorry, I have to go, or my computer don't want to. It's sleeping. Come on. Okay, this is, for example, how culture is shaping itself. It's a human castle. I don't know if this exists also in India. I think India would be the best country to make this. But indeed, this is from Catalonia in Spain. Hmm? You have. But for me, it's a cultural shape that is just amazing. Why? You can be young, old, man, woman, rich, not rich. You can collaborate, contribute to shape something which result is something which is holding for a few seconds, and the youngest goes to the top, 10 meters and more. This is a force, a cultural force, leading to a shape, creating at the same time individual proudness and collective contribution, a social production. And we have, of course, a lot of social productions. Okay. Now I would say again, if I had to resume my creation process in one slide, it will be this one. In fact, I discovered by practice that when we work, and it can be many different kind of work, I would say artworks, can be poetry, can be literature, can be music, can be painting, sculpture, and everything like this. To have some work done, we need 4 elements, but basically one triangle, which is in one angle the process, and all kind of processes allow us to make work. Without process, how to make any work? Impossible. And we need a material, and the words for the poet or the writer, and the sound for the etc. All this contribute to make a work. And then the next one, the space. There is no possibility of existing work without a space. And it's indeed, I don't know where it comes from, but maybe India, but I learned this before coming to India, that anything that exists needs a space to exist. Is it? From here? Yes? No? You don't know. Yeah. You don't know. Okay, but at least I believe this. Even a baby requires a space in between the father and mother for existing. If there is no space, too fusional, there is no possibility for the baby to exist. There is a need of space to welcome work. And then, of course, there is one individual with his own identity to be able to make this work. So what is the creation process? The creation process is you change one aspect of the triangle, everything changes. But for example, Vinud or Rashi or myself, we have the same process, same material and same space. Because we are not the same, the result will be different. But then if we need to change and to evaluate in our practice, we change one part of the angle and all the work is changing. Because the materials are not neutral and because the processes also are not neutral. And of course, the spaces are not neutral. Let's go now a little fast to the material. Material has a phenomenology. Clay is not wood, wood is not metal, metal is not plastic, plastic is not concrete. So there is a kind of phenomenology of the materials. And there is one French philosopher that I liked very much, and I studied when I was a student, Bachelard, who had written about the poetic of the materials. So I will encourage you to read about this. He wrote about clay or mud, and in French to English, and the dream of the wheel. This is about the clay. Water and dreams, fire and the psychoanalysis of fire, air and another kind of dreams, and the political of space. So he has written from all these elements to see the phenomenology and the poetry which are behind. Of course, material has natural or artificial origin, with properties, physical, chemical, and so on. But I would like to go to the last one, which is, in fact, material are connected to values. And the values can be cultural, aesthetical, emotional, economical, philosophical, psychological. And when I consider my material, I cannot not think that it's not by chance that clay has been used as a material to represent human being in so many cultures before the Bible of the Jewish, the Muslim, or the Christians. In China, you can find this. In South America, you find this. In many countries, the connection between human being and clay is so direct. And it is not by chance. And if you ask me the question, I will answer you why. But I have no time now. Then we go to force or process. Force is by nature and process by culture and art. Leading to a phenomenology of action. It means that when we are in action, there is something specific in this action. For example, throwing has its own phenomenology and how we can enlarge and discover spaces in the way of throwing the clay. Slab building, and all the other techniques, they have a phenomenology that, in fact, we should look very carefully. This technique is not this technique. So what is so special in this one that I can feel and give back understanding of it? And about processes, there is a vocabulary. For example, cut. I cut the clay. Why not? But cut, I can cut the clay, you can cut the clay, you can cut the clay, everybody can cut the clay. But how we are going to do it? This becomes personal. And if we compare to literature, there is a verb of action. Action is a verb. It's described by a verb, and then how we are going to qualify the word, this is important. This becomes personal. None of us, we can say, cut belongs to me. No, it belongs to everyone. But how we are going to cut, this becomes to be individual. About space, I would say that there is 3 categories of space. The space that is inside. For example, in my body, I have empty space. My stomach and my lung, and it needs to be empty. If it is full, it cannot work. Same as in architecture. What means a room which is full? No, cannot use. Need empty. Empty space is very important, connected to life. And then there is a space in between my hands, in between 2 people, in between groups, space. And how far this space can be enlarged and still be connected. This is interesting, for example. And then there is an outside space, which is what is around me, around this chair, and so on and so on, which is related also, for example, to sculpture, which is about food. And ceramic has connection with all these 3 aspects of spaces. Space inside the vessel, space in between 2 sculptures, for example, like this, and then the space outside, how it resonates through the skin of the material and the shape and so on. So the question is, when we speak about the space, when I speak about the space, it's in all sorts of domains. Can be social space, can be relational space, physical, spiritual, cultural, economical. All these are connected with these 3 categories of spaces. And then it can influence the work. Let's say I am going to do a work in India, or in a remote village, or in Delhi, or in my country, and so on. The space, in all its aspects, is going to influence the work, of course. I cannot just do something here and put it everywhere this way. I think there is something missing in that way. So the question is, at least it is the question I have always in mind, is what is the nature of the space I have to deal with? And sometimes one aspect is taking power related to the other. For example, can be the economical, or the historical, or the cultural, or the material aspect of the space, and so on and so on. So I have to feel something about the space, and then very immediately, without thinking too much, what comes first? This is what I call the intuition of the space. What comes first, and then I can start to provide something back. Well, I finished the theory for this talk. I'm sorry, a little long, but well. 7 years after finished my studies in Geneva, I was invited to work in Rwanda. Rwanda, remote country in East Africa, now become famous because I was there in 84, 86, and in 94 there was this crazy genocide. But when I was there, it was very peaceful. And indeed, the first moment I put my foot in Rwanda, I had the feeling I was at home. And I discovered something that it was impossible for me to discover at home in Geneva or in France. When I was a student, ceramic was hand size, arm size, sometimes body size. That was a limit. And then I discovered in Rwanda landscape scale for clay. And indeed, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when I went to Madhya Pradesh, and I discovered the way the people make the bricks in Madhya Pradesh, it was nearly the same way than in Africa. And so I fall down, and I try to pay homage to the people that influenced me so much in my work when I was in Africa. But indeed, I have been impressed, and this is the first step of breathing, impressed. And then after impressed, you can express something. You know, this is the two rhythm of impression expression. You know? So after this, it took me 7 years when I went back to my country to be able to make work connected to this feeling I got from Africa. If I have to describe this, for me, I can make a book on that picture. I make thousands of pictures. You have the kiln in process to be built, chaos and order, the fired one, and in other slide I have the one which are going to be sold. So in one land, in one piece of land, you have the process of making, you have the process of drying, you have the process of piling, you have the process of firing and selling in one site. Again, wow. And then needing me 7 years later to start with this. How does it come? And I would like to ask to the students, especially, to try to feel what is in the center. Is it the space? Is it the material? It is the process, which is the center of the work. Sometimes it can be two, but always I try to have at least one thing which is in the center of the work. This notion of what is in the center of the work is usually my process of teaching. I ask, if you have to say one thing about your work, what is in the center of your work? And of course, for myself, after years and years, I discover what is in the center of the work. We can speak this later. So this work comes by necessity. In '93, 3 things happened in my life. Number one, I was in charge of setting up an exhibition, a national exhibition in a reopening of a museum in Geneva. So a social responsibility. Number two, some people asked me to do to do some large work in a very nice place in a gallery in Geneva. And third, very important, the birth of my first son. So it means social responsibility, family responsibility, and no time to work. What to do? So this is where creation can provide. In the process, I have no time to fire, to make. Okay, so I change the process. Instead of making everything by my hands, the memory of Rwanda came back. Okay, I can use a brick as a coil. One brick is nothing, but with 2 becomes a colleague. With 3, we can start a sentence. And then we can make something like calling in the real scale of the space. So a form for infinity, as well as separation, is indeed my feeling about the birth of my first son. Translated by bricks, for example, about separation, I feel that the birth of a child is the first separation from the mother to the child. And then when the feeding is finished, second separation, and then go to first school, third separation. So it means that the women are, during their life, very trained to separation, where the men, indeed, we don't know what means separation, you know? The distance with the child is different. So I cannot tell you my surprise when my first son, when he was 17 or 18, when he left home, I feel totally desolated. I have no experience of separation, where my wife, a lot of experience in the same. And then I have been invited in many places, here in a harbor in Italy, where we can find that harbor for me means a wave, and how to translate this wave in a shape that can, like a tsunami, you know. And this brick, because material is also important, I try to take a brick that have many holes inside. So it means that it becomes like a dentals. So this very strong material, you know, you cannot see across and everything, can become something else. And I think this is at least something important as an artist, is how to reveal the nature of the material. More far, more light this becomes. Same in a museum in Portugal. Where we can play with the transparency of the wall, for example, in the movement. And then after a few years, I wanted to come back to my studio by making myself the bricks. And of course, I wanted to take a position against the industry. Industry, if you see the empty space in the bricks, they are very geometrical, all the same and things like this. So how to come to the studio and make a kind of visual porosity. So to make these bricks, okay, a very simple frame, but what is difficult is to have an action that is repeated but not the same in order to provoke this non-geometrical result. And if I notice that if I'm very concentrated, I can manage, but when I start to dream to something else, geometry is coming back. So you have to be, it's kind of meditation in action, to be concentrated, not to repeat in the same position, always. And then homage to Africa, homage to Middle East with the blue, turquoise, and homage to Far East with the celadon glaze. Another work, writing into space. I'm not an architect, very happy not to be an architect, less responsibilities, indeed. So it's one installation made in a gallery with two metal strings holding the shape. And when you move along, of course, the writing and the shadows and things are also in movement. And I was invited in Finland in this period, in January, when it is minus 10, 15, 20, 25 outside. What are the materials? I can have, the people invited me, you can have ice and you can have wood. Immediately, the intuition was, okay, ice and wood means ice and fire. The two hell. This is two hell for human being. Hell of fire is when nothing can stay. And hell of ice is when nothing can move. And in fact, human being, we are in tension in between these two poles where life cannot exist, indeed. So we made 2 weeks, 10 days, 2 weeks about. Each of these blocks of ice is 100 kilo. So carving into the lake with a machine like this, taking them out of the lake, carrying them. So it's a 30-meter long wall of ice and a 30-meter long wall of fire and dancers in between. And of course, the movement of the dancer in between one or the other were not the same. So 2 weeks work, 1 hour performance, and from this, I became a brother of ice and fire. This is a very important title for me. Brotherhood of fire and ice. So we can see that indeed the environment, the space, welcoming. How can I do this here in India? Impossible, you know, it's a site specific for Finland in that moment. And then I go to Korea and I already had experience about how to use material that are heavy and change the feeling of this material. And then we can see that the tiles have a special connection with water, in fact. So, in this case, there is 2 big stones, very, very, very heavy, and the tiles filling this space like water, indeed, and in movement, floating tiles. Then another relationship that I like very much is the relationship between clay and plants and nature. So I was invited here in a museum in Geneva. It was an exhibition, a competition about the little spoon in ceramic, but they invited me to do something in the garden. So I carved a spoon in these bricks, filled them with sand, and plant this grass. And I was very surprised that because of the sand, little water is kept by the sand, so during the summer, it was able to survive. So that was my first experience between ceramic and plants, not in a pot, but as a living material. Here, the space was in the center. Invited in a biennale in France, in this space, 3 pillars. Okay, what to do? Very immediately, I was thinking, okay, I'm a little fly, Bzzz, like this. So what will be my journey in this space? Bzzz, okay. So 15 seconds of drawing and 3 days making. And of course, the interesting aspect of it is how I can cross the walls, the interconnection. This becomes very interesting, how we can manage to not cut the bricks and make it possible to have this movement. Of course, it's impossible to measure this. It's just hands and eyes. Nobody can measure. If the walls are straight, it's possible, but nothing is straight. This is my very happy time when I do this kind of work, that I have to be so concentrated, only my hands and eyes, and so on. I recently, I will not show it, did a 100-meter installation in Geneva. Took 1 month. I put all of the 10,000 bricks in this installation. And indeed, I cannot delegate this. Only my hands and my eyes can conduct the work successfully. And other people will do another things. Sometimes it's material who is in the center. In this work, for the ceramic people, you have the recipe here on the slide. I find a way to use clay that I can make a work on Monday, fire it on Tuesday, exhibit it on Wednesday, and sold on Thursday. Means that I can shape very fast, and then dry very fast, and then fire very fast, and everything fast. What means fast? In my understanding, it's not because fast is interesting, but because in the ceramic process, something I feel sometimes boring, which is that we have to stop the energy in the process for the drying. If you remember, in Jaipur, Rashi, we didn't wait, it was dry. We fired immediately. This is fun, you know? Yes. So we can master the relationship between mud, fire, and water in that case. So my constraints, my frame was, I'm going to use the material as soft as possible, but because we cannot build big with very soft material, I have to have a burner and to dry it very fast, and then shape again, dry very fast. So I am able to make a piece of 2 meters long in 1 day, fire the day after, and so. This one is 2 meters long. And the good point with very, very soft material is that all your energy is going in a very fluent way inside the material. Hard clay is for angles, you know. But when you have very soft clay, all your action get inside, and this is so delicious indeed. Then I have been invited in China. And in the center was a describing of a new culture. And one aspect of the culture I discovered in China was the Tang Sangsai, which is the 3-color glazes from Tang Dynasty 1,500 years ago. And what is so specific in the Tang Sangsai, indeed, at least for me, it's not the horses where the glaze is put on. Horses are nice, but for me as a ceramic artist, it is running. Running is something special in ceramic. Of course, in painting too, but not in the same way. There is something that you cannot master during the kiln by running, and this is interesting when I cannot master everything. I'm happy when I don't master everything in the process. So I decided to make some patterns, very simple, 3 dots, and put in the kiln in different ways. This is about the process. This way, the pattern will stay. This way, the pattern will run. So it became, that was installation in Guangdong Art Museum, and then leading to this installation, I succeeded to make it mural, in history museum in my country. And indeed, if you look carefully, this one is running, this one is staying. Staying, running, it was my vision of China. What part of China was staying? remote villages and things. And Shanghai, Beijing, Xi'an, and all the people running and everything like this. So this was a way for me to translate my feeling of China thanks to a very ancient glaze. And this is another responsibility. And sometimes when you are a foreigner, it can help because you are not stuck on the usual vision of a technique. You can translate it in another way, in other possibilities. Tongue wall. This is another story, Tian. Tian means sky in Chinese. I found a very, very, very remote village, and in this village, what was so important for me, I was thinking that this village will not survive in its ceramic activities. Because what they were doing, the techniques they have, was so great, but no people had any more use or interest for that. So I tried to speak to students, please go to the village, try to make some connection, try to listen, try to understand the technique and try to find new solutions for you and for them to survive and from heritage to find new ways. Nobody listened. But they had a so nice clay and a so nice firing. I think I have to find a way to connect myself with them. So I asked them, okay, what is an important word for you? And in a list of words, they provide me sky. Okay, sky, interesting. So, make a stamp, and then from this, stamp 3,500 sky on Earth. And when there is some wedding, for example, I'm happy to provide one sky on Earth to the future people married. But indeed, this work was not made for that. This came after. It was to translate another feeling of China, which is overloading. One of the very important feeling of China that everything was overloaded. Trucks, people, machines, intensity of life, everything was overloaded and creating problems, in fact, in the society. So overloading, and you have one picture connected to this box that cannot take everything, in fact. But the start is not conceptual. The start of this work is not overloading come after. First is, I have to do something to collect the memory of this technique from these people. On display in another place about this. And then another place in China, near Xi'an, where I was invited to work for 3 months, which was a factory. And in this factory, they make bricks, nice. And that's what the pattern of the bricks. And that was the waste. And indeed, I found the waste very nice. So what to do with this waste? How to show it back? If I have no feeling from nothing, how can I give something back? Impossible. But when I have a little feeling, a big feeling from something, then all my skill has to serve this feeling to give back to the others. So that was the tools to produce this. And indeed, in China, I was in India, there is not only the emperor history or memory and culture, there is also the industrial memory. So I wanted to pay homage to the actual memory of industry, maybe by thinking that maybe also this one day will be disappearing. So it led to this kind of presentations, like a vocabulary. And then I come to one very central, if I have to keep, it's very difficult to choose one of your children in art, but this one for me is very important. I visited Xi'an and the terracotta warrior's tomb of Shi Huangdi. And that was one image. So you can see the people were not very freely working. You have I don't know how to say this. Okay, the tomb is huge, and the history is amazing, and it was to prevent Shi Huangdi, the emperor, wanted to make these terracotta elements in order to prevent, at that time, to take his army together with him in the tomb. That was a tradition at that time. The army protects the emperor on earth and has to protect him also in the sky. He was thinking that it was a little bit expensive. So 600,000 workers has worked during 40 years. That is what is said is in the place. And it seems, I don't find any trace exactly of that, but what is said is that they have been put together with the emperor when he died. So immediately for me, no question, no doubt, I have to pay homage to the unknown worker of the terracotta warrior's tomb. That leads to the work in between something and nothing, that indeed we are. We can be wealthy, we can be poor, we can be anything. We are in between something and nothing. So I started to, I bought a very simple, small figure of terracotta warriors in a tourist shop, make molds, you can see on the left, and then start a very simple movement. Take, which means take the print, and throw away. Take, throw away, with a minimum quantity of clay. Take, throw away, in a very fast movement, without any care of the result of the print. But in fact, the heads are in. So we worked with two other people, with me, two women, 3 weeks, making 150,000 of these elements. In boxes, fill the boxes, and then fired. Leading to, in one exhibition in Guangzhou, not very much space. This is one way to show it. And I found this element in a farm, which is to prepare the food. And of course, I put some heads inside. And then another display in a museum in Shanghai, 200 square meters. So from far, you see nothing, just little dots. And from near, you have one face, and when you have one face, you have all. And again, another tool to prepare the food, breaking the heads. I have to add to this work and presentation that indeed, it's not China. It's about human being. When you have power, when you need something, you take. When you don't need any more, you throw away. And of course, take and throw away is also a ceramic action. Take the print and throw away. So at the same time, it's a social action, sociological action, and ceramic activities that can be connected through this very simple act. That's why I say that processes are already meaningful. A process is not something like this. No. You have to understand what is inside the process that can provide some aspect of feeling. Another vision. This was made with porcelain. So I have actually two versions. One in the official terracotta, in the official clay of the tomb, and then in porcelain, in between something and nothing. It means that after making all these heads, printing, it leads to a kind of meditation about power. How to restrain ourselves when we have power, not to behave this way, but to respect every of the individuals which are around us. When we have one, we have all human beings. And I've seen people stealing these little heads in some exhibition. It's not the value of one head, but it's because one head is human being. A very simple little dot of clay. Another way to present it. And then by printing so many of these faces, I wanted to enlarge the work. And this is 2 columns I made. Every of these dots you have seen, you can see here is one face. is one face in negative. And then another way to present it in another space. And then another way to treat it with very thin slab of porcelain, printing the head, becoming ghost. And then another way to make it. By serendipity, which is a very interesting concept in ceramics, that's something that you can find without looking for it, I had to protect some works in the firing. So I put some sands. When I unload the work, I had all the faces printed in the sand. Okay, new work. So I made a roll with faces and then invite the people to make their own faces. So this is a kind of collaborative work. People can play in the exhibition with the roll and see the faces appearing and disappearing. We'll move. In China, when I was traveling, I make always a lot of pictures. And in that case, I like particularly the relationship between building and bamboo. So I was invited in a place where the landscape is this way. I had 35 tons of bricks available for me. So I propose a work which title is Moving Mountains, because it is also one of my feelings about China, which is the place in the world where if you have a mountain and you don't want to have it, you can move the mountain, remove the mountain. Maybe India is the same, I don't know. So we did it, and what I didn't knew, so this is kind of structure of bamboo for the bamboo architect here that we can see there, leading to this work, Moving Mountains. And what I didn't knew, in fact, that Moving Mountain was exactly or nearly the same title as ancient story that Chairman Mao has put into the Red Book, the old foolish guy who wanted to remove mountains. And I like this kind of thing, when I don't know something about a culture, but my feeling about this place lead to find some connection without knowing them. So it's the story of a guy who wanted to find a road in between his village to the city. And he was old. He started the work. Everybody was laughing at him. But his son continued. And then one day, the village was connected to the city. Another space that was in the center of this installation is also bamboo and bricks. In this space, you enter this way, and there is only one thing which is specific, which is the opening in the roof, with lights coming. So again, very immediately is looking for light. And indeed, I'm not English, but what I know about English, that light can have four meanings. Looking for light, do you have light? Do you have fire? Looking for light is opposite of heavy. Looking for light is, the third meaning is looking for enlightenment, you know. And of course, electricity. I forget the fourth one. Yeah. So you enter the place from outside, you get some time a little bit into the dark, and then up to the light. And then autumn leaf in Shanghai, Shihuangdi, Xintiandi Square. Everything is artificial. Even the lake where it is put beside is artificial. And I was thinking, okay, it will be nice to go against the space with recycled tiles from the roof of the houses of South China. So we get these second-hand tiles and make one autumn leaf with bamboo and tiles, in opposition of the quality of the space. That was when I was saying at the beginning that material is not neutral. You should have seen how the people, everybody was coming when we were setting up this work and speaking about their memory, about their houses when they were living in the village. The same in Jingdejen, indeed. I have in my house 1 cubic meter of the ancient roof tiles of the city of Jingdejen, where it is all destroyed actually now. And here you have a vision of the work in the space there in Xintiandi. I think, I don't know what you think, but for me it's already 1 hour 20 or something like this. I have many more, but at least I think it is enough. What do you say? Maybe one thing I can do is maybe to show something which is not related to very big scale, because we have ceramic artists here, but something which is connected to make it. Sorry, here. Okay, maybe I can show this for you. Okay, let's go here. Yixing, which is a place where, when I visited this place in 2000, it was this way, with the big jars. They make teapots, but also these jars in Yixing. And that was a harbor leading to Shanghai and to other places where they sell the big jar for different purpose. And in fact, it was like abandoned when I visited this place, and I just make the picture. And it happened that a guy who saw the autumn leaf in Shanghai invited me, please come to my garden. And would you be happy to put the autumn leaf in my garden? So I visited the garden, and when I saw the garden, I said, I will not make the autumn leaf, I will make some other work related to his space. And in fact, I was drawing different character, no, not different character, different shapes, freely related to the environment of the garden. And then something came like this, that a Chinese friend, Ayu, that you know, told me, oh, this is like the character who, and who mean each other, work together. So let's try to make the who. So the who is a big wall with made ceramic elements. When I say big, it's 35 meters long, with a slope made with tiles, with water, going to a pond with a path. So the guy said, okay, we do it. So this is the shaping process. And in fact, the who is at the same time the design of the whole garden, also the design of the sculpture getting in the pond, and also the surface decoration of the element of the sculpture. So it's 3 levels of who based on that. And this is actually the situation where indeed these walls are made by recycled ceramic. Why? I am in Yixing, a city where ceramic is produced by ton and ton, means a lot of waste. How can I use this waste in order to give something back from the local culture? So these shards were just great to be used in that way. You can see the shards here in a 35-meter long wall, 8 meters high, 1 meter wide. So it's about 200 cubic meter of waste recycled in this way. And I'm dreaming to maybe do this in Longshuan and maybe in Jingdejen and maybe in Limoges, in my country, in all the ceramic cities. We can give back something which are waste, which means low cost, that is coming from the ground, in fact. And now there is a tea house. Let's go very quickly to my heart, where I was invited to do this brick temple. And here is the shape that every of you know about how to make bricks in the countryside. And I also believe that probably this technique will disappear soon because there is a competition of land in between the farmers and the brick makers. So we started to, the project was accepted, and it was a temple, a brick temple in homage to the brick makers. Indeed, the homage that I didn't think that I will need to do when I was in Africa. It was the right moment to pay homage. So this is some aspect of this work at night. And there is one brick in levitation. And by chance, one of the group who makes the bricks, they make the bricks VIP. So I was very happy to show one VIP brick into the brick temple in levitation. I will not go to this, it will lead too far, but maybe few. Okay, I made a research with University in Geneva. I don't show to all the research, but just the result, leading to a green wall, which is not bags suspended, but a ceramic material that can accept plants growing inside, and you can control the water, and in the summer or in the spring, adjust the watering depending on the season. And indeed refreshing the house and also refreshing the climate of the city potentially. So it means that this relation between ceramic and plants for me is important. And now we can go to my studio with few works connected to some intimate works that can make in my studio related to the ceramic practice, the studio ceramic practice, where I always try to also push the boundaries. And here a collaboration with a Japanese Ikebana master. And he was a specialist of very little plants. So we had a collaboration in a gallery in Paris about his way to understand the space and my treatment of the materials. I call this homeworks. And indeed, in this practice, what I try to do is not to control everything, to put clays that, in fact, didn't fit together. Usually, we don't put these clays together, and try to see what happened. And when I get a surprise, I'm very happy. And then I follow, sometimes with polishing, sometimes with sandblasting. So sometimes the work is not finished after the firing, but has some prolongation after. Throwing with one hand. For the ceramist, usually we use the two hands. But this, I only use one hand from the start to the end. That's it. Thank you very much. So that was from material to process and to space, with different kind of material, different kind of processes, and different kind of spaces. I would be happy if I can welcome some questions, maybe, even if I was a little long in my speech. So if no question, I'm going to repeat.
I wanted to know the story. Could you tell the story again of the tomb warriors? What was the area called in China?
What?
The warrior army, the terracotta warriors.
In China?
Yeah. What was the area called?
It is in Xi'an.
Xi'an. So the people making it, you said that after it was done, so they were made to do it under force?
Many of them was a kind of slave workers. And indeed, when I observe the processes in the place, they already have some mixed techniques, using mold and using slabs and using this and adding. And so there were few molds to make the heads, and then they were working after that, you know. So they were very clever in the processes for the horses. But the fact is, not this for me that was important, but 600,000 people working 40 years that indeed were just working forces that can go to the tomb together with Emperor. And indeed, I don't know if it is true. I found nothing to confirm that. But one very good point in art, we don't need the truth. Historians, they are looking for the truth. Scientists are looking for the truth. In fact, what we are looking is not the truth, but the impression of something, even if it is not true. At least for me, I don't care the truth.
Hi, good evening. As a student of sculpture, fine arts, I mean, we often have this dilemma of, especially because we're students, like, you know, we have submissions and we have exams and so many things coming up. How do you balance between, you know, where your work is coming from and, you know, how you have to produce it? Because as you said, it doesn't start with the concept for you. It starts with an intuition. So how do you balance the whole journey of the starting and the completion of your work?
Okay, to answer you, maybe I will come back to my practice as a professor. And for example, for the first year, I didn't ask the student to, I'm going to say this. Okay, we were starting by taking verb of action without any intention. Just what means cutting, what means this action, this action, this action, this action, and any kind of action that people can find. And it means that then we have a result. So I don't care the action, but we can start to speak from the result, what we can feel. And then from this, we can slowly see how we can develop something from the reality of the start of something that was made without intention. And that's the way that slowly you can build a kind of confidence and understand the material, because it is reacting not to get a result, but just to have a relationship. And this simple action, this one, made by you or by me, will be different. So we can compare. And then we can try to enlarge. And then we can continue to discuss and feel what we feel together and come to some understanding. This is interesting to discuss this in group, because in fact the understanding, the feeling can be different between people. It means that the professor is not God. It's just one human being feeling something that we can compare with other feelings from children or other people, artists or not, you know. So we can share and then come to understanding. Instead of, I know, you don't know. You know? And then I think that the teaching process is more a kind of co-contribution than, okay, I'm going to show you, I'm going to repeat. Then when there is a need from the students to understand something which is a traditional skill, then we can teach, but it comes from the need of the student. And of course, more open you have mind and skills, more you can have intuition of how you can proceed, of course. Leading me to say that, indeed, in my actual work, I trust myself that I will find a solution. But the space or the material will be the guide and the master, indeed. So I find this way very fruitful in the relationship with the student and in their creation process. Indeed, in school, I have noticed that during the third year, for example, they become the specialists of what they have discovered. And they know better than me what they do. And that is fine. You know. I don't know if I answered your question. Okay.
Hi. I wanted to ask, especially with your large-scale installations, I'm sure you must be collaborating with a lot of people.
Sorry?
Especially with your large-scale installations, you must be collaborating with a lot of people. How important is this collaboration? And are there any like accidents or experiments that has come as a result of these collaborations?
Well, indeed, I didn't show these pictures of my recent solo exhibition in Geneva, which is indeed my hometown, where I study, and this museum is important for the ceramic in Switzerland. And on the final picture was 70 people. Three kind of people helping me. One category of people were students from the art school, ceramic students. We made a mud house, kind of what we did in Jaipur. And of course, during the process, we can speak together and get involved and get close. And then, you know, when you do something with someone, something special happens, you know, some kind of special relationship. And indeed, this is one advice for the students. Your professors are not only your professor, they are also professional. So always I had the double hat. As a professor, I am supposed to teach, and I am paid for teaching. But I'm not paid to support you after school. So when I see students so much involved and willing to go and to move on and so on, I have the full desire, as I have been supported, to support also after school. Why should I support student that was lazy in the school? No reason for that. So it means at the same time I have the professional as a professor and the professional as a ceramic artist with connection in the world and so on. Remember this. None of us, we can make ourselves by our own self. It's also collaboration, contribution, and I've been helped so much by my own professors at the end of the school. So this is one thing. So one group, this kind of student. Second group, we have in Switzerland a law that says that when you are immigrants or asking for permit to stay, and if you are under 19 years old, even if you don't have any paper, you are supposed to get classes from the government. So this second group was people asking for asile, would like to stay without any papers. We made a second kind, and some of them, we asked them, for this exhibition was about the walls, bricks and walls. So we have made interview with all of them, what means wall for you? And I was very surprised for most of them, wall means protection, more than separation. It means that the need of protection is more important than all what they have lived before, in terms of separation and things like this. Some of them were saying, we feel alive working together on this project, which means that they feel that they're collaborating to something which is larger than all of us individually. Third group is what I call the refugee from the inside. It means the young people that have been kicked out of any education system, and they have to sign agreement with the institution saying, okay, number one, I will arrive on time in the morning. Number two, I will say hello in the morning. Number three, when we are going to speak together, we are not going to shout each other. Number four, if we don't agree, we are not going to hit each other. When they sign this institution provide them the start of education in a profession, and then how to reconnect to education system, providing them a profession, in fact. So 3 groups of people, nothing to say with each other, working together, and everybody enjoy, in fact. So how to put energy together is, I believe, by respecting all the people working together. So it means that every of us, they are not just hands. We need to find a way to keep contact. 1 minute. The refugees from the inside, they arrive on the campus, on the site, 9 o'clock in the morning, this way. Then they receive instruction, carry bricks. Okay. 12 o'clock, we eat together. And then we start discussion. Okay, Jacques, this is art. Why is this art? So good questions. And then we start to speak together, and I respect every question. 2 o'clock, carrying bricks. 5 o'clock, Jacques, tomorrow we will with you. And they are this way, open, eyes, eyes to eyes, ready, body ready, everything warm inside, and communicating. So I think in that level, art can be a kind of way of, not therapy, but healing the relationship from people to the society and with others. And it can be fast. This is a very big surprise, but it can be. But maybe one more thing about this is that, of course, I am the boss. I give instruction, and it's my project. But I welcome people, thoughts, of course, and so on. And when this can create the desire for the others to become creative, done. Something is gained inside, you know.
In the installation of separation, you said about space and center of the space. So
Yeah.
I want to know more about it.
Okay, separation is about 2 skin. Okay, the mother skin and the baby skin coming out of the body. So it's the first separation. And indeed, how can a brick represent the mother and the children? But why not? It has not to be explicit. But at least it was my feeling about this very special moment when I welcome my first child into my hands after a long process of giving birth. Wow. But wow for me, but for my wife, it was something, you know, feeding, can rest, food, exercise inside the body. And then another experience. Where's Pratiti? Yeah. Pratiti is gone, but you know, she has a baby and she's questioned, how will that be after giving birth? It will come. But this separation, at least for me as a man, I had the feeling that it was a very, very amazing moment. Also for my wife. I don't know if I answer you.
Hello, sir. My question is about, it's not a question actually. I was just wanted to know about you practice somewhere else, like you do work in your space. In your studio or somewhere else?
You work in your studio?
Yeah. In my studio and outside, both.
After that, when you get into a gallery,
Yeah.
after displaying your work,
Yeah.
what do you feel?
Well, it's good if the work goes outside the studio. Even if you visit my studio, it's full. I have 30 years studio now, the same place. It was a small studio, small, was 80 square meters. And now it's a bigger studio, 300 square meters, but it's already full. So I'm happy when the work goes outside. But also I like to have the studio full because it's kind of feeding the work and the next step, you know, like a tree. It's good to have your work also under your eyes, so it leads to another step, another step, another step all the time, and this branch, and this branch, and this branch also. So I'm happy when it goes outside, and of course, some works, they have their own internal space or space around, as I described, the three levels of space. And then we have to find the way in the gallery how to display it. This is one category. Some other work also made in the studio, for example, I've shown some pictures, and the recent work I did in a museum in Geneva. Okay, I have some feeling about the space, and then I feed this feeling with a proposition that is made in the studio and going to space. So it's different attitudes with variation depending the space, the gallery, the museum, or the site-specific situation outdoor, or the cultural situation in specific countries or something like this. I have on-site exhibition. I am dealing with institutions, which is another kind of relationship. So each time there is some little change. I cannot make one work fitting with every situation. And then after that, there is a collector who is going to live with it. Two solutions. One is he's buying a work, so his problem, because the work exists, and I don't know why he will buy a work if he doesn't like it. Probably he's going to buy the work because this work is providing energy, and the energy back is the money. So I can continue. You know, it's a kind of exchange of energy. My energy and money is also energy in a way, in good sense. And then the situation like with Atul Dalmia in his house, where he doesn't know what will be the result, but he accepts the risk. So this situation is same in the garden. Some people accept this, and also that trust me. So.
Not okay, but later.
Yes. Take the microphone for the others.
Still also, when I was in college, you know, so I have a feeling that I'm also doing works. After that, when you going to, what I thought was, still I thought is that I try to if someone comes with someone else.
Yeah.
So I try to understand what happening at the moment. It's complete till 50%, I guess. When it come to another place or a gallery space or some place,
So we can
maybe
change.
it will complete.
And we can change,
So
for
it's
example.
kind of a understanding. I feel.
Yeah.
If you see my work, I'll talk to you.
So we have to see your work.
It's kind of understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. But indeed, one space requires not the same as another space. And at a moment, your feeling about the space can be different. But anyway, all of us, we have feeling about space. What is this space providing us? What another space is providing us? And we have feeling. Sometimes we feel comfortable. We don't know why. That's also why I think architect has a huge responsibility. Because we are going to live in the space they provide to us. What the feeling we are going to have? Neutral or something warm or something, what I'm going to do here, you know? So, thank you.